What's up, race fans? You're here with Jake. This is Talkin Dirty, and we've got a special guest here on a little mini episode of the podcast. Somebody kind of unusual. I know normally we interview drivers, but today we have Johnny Brennan, and you might know Johnny Brennan from Fox TV's Family Guy, or maybe the multi-platinum selling Jerky Boys albums. Johnny, how are you?
Hey, man, great to be here.
So, for our race fans listening, can you kind of give us a little bit of a background about your connection to the Speedway? Because I don't know if everybody knows, but you actually have been a longtime fan and attendee of our events at Orange County Fair Speedway.
Oh, yeah, man, it goes back many decades. You know, I remember growing up as a kid, the 60s and the 70s, man, that was the place to be on Saturday night. You can't trade those memories for anything. I believe my first trip there, my aunt took me there, I believe it was 1966, and I never looked back, man. It was like, as a kid, you fell in love with the Speedway, you fell in love with the cars, you fell in love with the whole shows and programs, and it was like nothing else. It was like the greatest form of entertainment, especially, you're a little boy and there's nothing better than race cars and seeing it, it just really took your breath away. It was pretty awesome.
So what was, your first event, what was kind of the biggest takeaway from that? What was what was the memory that stuck out? Do you remember who won that event, or who were kind of the big names running the track back then?
Yeah, well, for me, it was awesome. It was because it was my very first time. I really didn't know what I was to expect. I was just a little boy. But what blew me away was just the thunder of the modifieds. And, when they wave the flag and the green flag drops and the cars go by, and you can't explain it to people unless they see it and live it for themselves. I was overwhelmed as a little boy. So, I didn't really have any favorites yet because it was my first time to the track. But I'll never forget it leaving that night, and I left with a picture of Will Cagle. So, and through the years, I've always had my favorites. I was, Richie Urich is one of my all-time favorites. You name it, Buzzy Ruderman. I remember seeing so much great stuff at that track way back in the day, in the early 70s and whatnot. I remember seeing a red flag where Wayne Ruderman jumped out of his car and got in the cockpit of Gary Ballou and started, slugging the crap out of him. There was some great action up there. And as a kid, you're like, man. And then I remember at intermission, the drivers would come up to the fence, and all the little kids would run down to the fence with a pen and paper, and you pass the pen and paper through the fence, and your favorite drivers come up and sign it and pass it back to you. As a little boy, man, you go to school, and I used to do reports on how much I love that stuff.
Wow, that's incredible, man.
Yeah.
I love hearing everybody's, stories, just their connection to the track. So what is, back in 1966, it wasn't, how much longer before you kind of got into your career and doing the Jerky Boys thing?
Well, that funny enough, a lot of the memories come from that time, and a lot of the actual anecdotes and whatnot you see in the Jerky Boys come from when I was a child, and I utilized all that stuff growing up. Like classic lines like the famous Jerky Boys line from my character, Saul Rosenberg, where he says, God and baby Jesus, that all comes from the 60s when I was a kid, and I was able to use it later in my routines and whatnot, never forget, and always talking about, race cars and, my Frank Rizzo character, for example. When Frank Rizzo talks, one of the most famous skits in the world of all time is The Auto Mechanic by the Jerky Boys. And you hear Frank Rizzo, he's like, I work on race cars. First he says he works on race cars for 7 years. Then he comes back and says he works on race cars for 18 years. And people always ask, and I say, yeah, this is all part of my childhood that I was able to incorporate, years later when I was doing these routines and these bits and stuff. And now you're talking about Jerky Boys is, worldwide fame. Anywhere they speak English, Australia, the United Kingdom, anywhere you go, the Jerky Boys is just, it's out of control. And especially now with social media, But, what the beauty of it is, as we got older, we were able to run. My brother raced Orange County, Jesus, for years. He started out in that brand new, back in the 80s, it was the brand new Sportsman, I believe, when they had, certain rules and things like that, and you could run a Sportsman. And he actually ran a Barefoot Bob McCready, a car that was built for Barefoot Bob McCready by Eric at Kneisel. And my brother, we bought that car and repainted it and stuff, and my brother ran it in the Sportsman division. And we just always had so much fun up at that speedway. It was just, like I said, and then all local tracks as well. The local tracks like Accord and the neighboring tracks, and but racing became a part of our lives. And my cousin raced there back in the late '60s and throughout the I believe '75, and that's why we were always intertwined. And like I said, I can't say enough about the whole facility, and I know Chris Larson is doing some amazing stuff, and he's bringing it back to where it gets back to being a wonderful family place, like where you can bring the family, you can have a wonderful time, and it's the entertainment is just incredible, and that's why it's great to see these young kids and whatnot getting back into it, and wanting to become race drivers and dirt track drivers, and it's all good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a really exciting year, especially with all this, celebration of the history and all sorts of connections and this and that. In my research, I've found different, celebrity guests and other grand marshals and things that have kind of appeared at Eastern States and other big events throughout the year, which brings me to my next question, which is, have you ever commentated or announced a race? Because as our fans are about to find out, you've been invited to the booth on Saturday of Eastern States. Right. And the funny thing is, I obviously, that's not my shtick. I don't do, but I've been in a lot of booths before, and I've been in a lot of racing booths where I just say hello to the fans and they ask me questions during the program, and I'll answer questions, or they basically that's what they have. They have a lot of questions for me, and the fans love to hear, that I'm there and say hello and things like that. Like I said, a lot of the new drivers, like you got Friesen and you got, all these hot shoes out there today, that are up and coming. And, so it's funny, the different eras that I've come through and I've seen, Bobby Malzahn, and you had Bobby Botcher. My cousin actually bought Botcher's car from him and ran that car back in the early 70s. So like I said, the connections are fantastic. It's a different ball game today too. Back in those days, I mean, I'm sure if you look at pictures or you look through, you have the Orange County, you look through the old photos, you see the cars back then were just extraordinary, and they were so different from each other. Every car was different. It was just, there was so much character, and it's different now because all the cars look the same. I mean, the only thing that can really change now is the paint jobs, but it's a different world. It's a different animal. But I just always cherish the fact that I was able to grow up in that time and see just the wonder of how individual everybody was, and how many heroes you had on that track at one time was incredible. Wow. Yeah, I mean, pardon my ignorance, but I never would have imagined that, that this guy whose comedy stuff I'd heard growing up and whose voice I hear on TV every week was at the track back in the day, in the heyday, coming up with all these guys. I mean, that's like, it kind of blows my mind a little bit, but I'm, a bit of a younger fan. Yeah, well, I'm probably in and around the same age as Chris Larson, I believe. We probably experienced the track at the same time. It was just a wonderful era. You can't, it was so funny because we go to the races. I always like to sit in the first turn, or we'd sit, where you could see the cars go by when they got the green flag, and all that action into the first turn was amazing. You can't, a lot of times, you get a lot of wrecks in the first turn, but I'll never forget, it was on a nice, beautiful, warm summer night.
after the races, your whole left side, your ear would be full of dirt. You'd have literally dirt in your hair, your ears, and everything.
Yep.
And the greatest feeling of all was after the races were over, we get home, we all jump out of the station wagon or the pickup truck, and the first thing we did was jump in the pool for like a midnight swim, and get all. And the next day, the pool would be full of dirt and mud from the track. And I mean, you don't forget things. Yeah, you don't forget things like that. You remember things like that. Like we couldn't wait to get home and jump in the pool.
Wow.
Yeah, it's great.
I mean, it's crazy because it's probably been 100 years that people have had that exact kind of memory, because that's one of my memories too growing up.
Yeah.
Turn one, and
yep.
you would especially get dusty in turn one.
Yep.
And yeah, just getting home, being a kid, kid doesn't want to take a shower. I want to jump right in the pool.
Jump in the pool. Jump right in the pool and get all that Orange County clay. You know, and the funny thing is, I actually have a book here that it's called The Hard Clay. And my cousin actually got me a copy. My cousin Greg Sheilak, who used to run up there back in the early 70s, he got me a copy of the book, and it's 1919, and it covers 1919 through 1969. Mm-hmm. And there's some fascinating information in that book about Orange County Speedway. They actually believe that Frankie Schneider, it says in the book, that was believed to be the first pit stop, like successful pit stop, and you can actually read it in the book, a few paragraphs on Frankie Schneider, who's also, obviously I don't have to tell you, is one of the greatest dirt track drivers of all time.
Yes, this Eastern States is being run in his honor.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah, he's very much like a part of our.
Yes.
We really wanted to celebrate him and all the history stuff that we've celebrated this year. We wanted to name the big one for him.
Right. Right. And it's funny enough, my daughter, I got her when she's 24 now, but when she was little, I got her Frankie Sausage Bar T-shirt.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
So, we used to go to Frankie's Sausage Bar. It was right there next to the track. So it was right between turn 1 and 2 there, right off turn 2. And mm-hmm. we'd go to Frankie's Sausage Bar. We'd have something to eat. And always on Frankie's cars, you would see it was sponsored by Frankie's Sausage Bar. And I'll never forget how cool, everybody loved Frankie Schneider. And, like I said, the best of the best have come through Orange County. You got Brett Hearn. You've got, the talent that's come and run at that speedway is just unmatched.
Wow. Yeah. I can't disagree with that. I mean, still running, these guys still winning, still
they're amazing.
You're not the first person I've talked to, interviewed, where it's like, the guys you saw growing up are the same guys, that I saw growing up, and are the same guys that are running now. It's pretty incredible.
Right.
It just goes to show, the age of the facility, 100 years, how long fans hang around, how long competitors hang around.
Right. It's a very, very cool thing, man. And like I said, it's a family thing. Once you get it in your blood, it doesn't get out of your blood. I remember I believe it was 2 years ago, Richie Urich was celebrating his 50th season racing, or his 51st season. I forget what it was. He had it right on the side of the car. And sure enough, I was there that night with the 305 sprint cars. And I never bother anybody. I never go up to anybody. I don't do stuff like that. That's not my personality. But that night, Richie Urich won the feature. And you're talking about a guy who's been driving since 1967. And I said, you know what? I got to go say hello to Urich. So I went over to his trailer and I shook his hand. I said, Rich, congratulations, man. I said, it's just so great to see you, out here kicking these young guys' asses. And it was funny because I was able to tell him back in 1967, I pointed to the stands, the grandstands, and I said I was sitting in those grandstands in 1967 as a little boy watching you race. And to be able to tell him that night was pretty spectacular. And he's still racing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So you brought up the hard clay. I actually managed to read through the hard clay this year, and I thought that there was not only some really cool, kind of mind-blowing stuff about how important actually Orange County was in the history of all racing, but also just kind of all the silly anecdotes and weird things that have happened at the track. Like the dead horse buried there, and my favorite was that there was a snake on the track that had gotten caught in a spoke wheel and caused a car to turn over in a major accident.
Wow. See, there's tons of cool stories. You know, the sad fact is the book cuts off at 1969.
Right.
Yeah, there's so many stories after 1969 that are incredible as well. But the book covers 1919 to 1969, and it's a terrific book.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunately out of print. You know, I would tell our listeners, go get your hands on that book. But you know, if I said that, it'd be you'd quickly find that it's not exactly easy to get your hands on.
No, it's not.
But
it's not.
Hopefully, at some point, and you know, if we can figure out whether or not we'd be allowed or who to talk to about it, but it'd be great to have something like that reprinted, and then, as you were saying, you know, continue the story and write the next 50 years. Now that we've got another 50 years down.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can think of a lot of people that would you know, be great to interview. I mean, you know, even just some of these conversations I've had with guys that have been at the track for a long time. I've learned so much about an era that you really can't, you know, you can't go on the internet and search, you know, what was happening at Orange County Fair Speedway in 1983.
Right.
It's not going to tell you.
Right.
But it's still you know, there's still a story there, and it's got to kind of be unearthed. We actually did a really great documentary series this year that was on Fox Sports website.
Yeah, I saw some of it.
I learned a lot from that. You know, I grew up in the 70s, so I have a huge blind spot for OCFS history. You know, I mean, that's kind of what I know through research and stories and talking to older fans and interviewing drivers, and it's, you know, it's been a really cool learning experience for me. And, you know, again, totally cool and mind-blowing to know that that you were a part of it. Yeah,
man. Like I said, you know, for any new families out there, if they're thinking of a place to, you know, take their family on a Saturday night, unlike a movie, you know, take the family, you know, take the kids and the wife, and, you know, go to the Speedway, and if you've never done it before, you'll be hooked. And once it's in your blood, man, you can't get it. You can't get it out of your blood. You know, it's just part of you. It's just part of your life. It's just incredible.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of that's exactly what I say. Yeah, I mean, that's you really nailed it. I mean, that's what I've taken people, and that's been their response of just like, holy shit, wow. I can see myself coming back to this.
Right.
You know, it's like, yeah, man, you definitely
absolutely
should. You know, it's not anything like watching NASCAR on TV. It's not, you know,
nope.
It's totally its own experience.
Yeah, exactly. Why do you think guys like Tony Stewart's love of his life is being back on the dirt and being back in the short tracks and the dirt tracks, and, you know, that's where it's at, man. NASCAR it's NASCAR. You know, you turn on. As a matter of fact, I don't know how, you know, NASCAR is doing these days, and, you know, too much political nonsense going on. But when you go to the Orange County Fair Speedway, it's an experience. Trust me, I've seen NASCAR, and this is an experience like you've never seen.
You said it. Well, Johnny, I don't want to keep you too long. It's been awesome talking with you. Thank you so much for doing this interview. And I guess, you know, to wrap it up, and I don't know if this is appropriate or because I don't do this a lot, but can we expect to hear a little bit of Rizzo or Saul or Mort in the booth when you join Tim at Eastern States weekend?
You know what's funny? I don't see why not. You know, I like races like anybody else. Even if you get a little dirty, so what? You dust yourself off and you have fun at the Speedway. That's all I can say. Now I'm getting very angry.
Thank you so much, Johnny.
All right. Hey, listen. Big shout out to the fans, Jerky Boys, Family Guy, and the Orange County Fair Speedway fans. We'll have a ball Saturday. We'll have a good time.
You got any like website, social media that people can
Yes, actually, I appreciate that. I have all brand new merchandise, T-shirts, hats, all this great stuff. I even do personal roasts. It's thejerkyboys.com. So just thejerkyboys.com.
Awesome. All right, race fans, check out thejerkyboys.com. Check out OrangeCountyFairSpeedway.net. check out the Eastern States weekend schedule of events. There's a lot of cool stuff going on. We got Johnny Brennan in the booth. We've got cornhole tournaments, Power Wheels races for the kids, all sorts of cool stuff going on. I'm especially excited about the launch of our Eastern States Weekend Ale, brewed by Equilibrium Brewery right in Middletown, New York, one of the best award-winning breweries in the country. So lots of cool stuff going on. Again, thank you, Johnny.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We'll look forward to seeing you.
All right.
Have a great one.
You too. Bye.